And that's it. That's it. And that's it. Now my soldering points are clean there, and the wires are set right. Okay, so we're going to repeat that for the other motors. Sorry, I know that's kind of hard to get the camera angle there, but just want to kind of show you guys what that'll look like. So you will now go ahead and do the other wires. I'm still not going to put the zip tie in because I want to put the spacer in first. So let me get going on the other motors real quick. All right, now I believe this is the other counterclock, or this, yeah, this should be the other counterclockwise motor. And again, it works the same way like I told you before. If you fasten, if you put the fastener on for your prop and you turn it clockwise to tighten, that's a counterclockwise motor. So this motor right here, just so happened the way I grabbed them, this motor right here is actually going to be the opposite end of this one. So this motor 2, this is going to be motor 3. Both of them tighten clockwise, as you can see here. All right, and both of them loosen counterclockwise. If you put these on backwards, you do not get to use the beta flight to change the direction of the motor. That does not apply here because these motors are specifically set with those fasteners. You cannot swap them. So you would have to desolder the motor and move it to the correct location. So just make sure you get that done right. And we're going to go ahead now, cut these ends off, finish the tinning process. It is true that these wires on the Multi-Star do not solder or tin as well. The solder doesn't hold as well, but they still be okay. You just have to take your time a little bit with these. It's not like a high-grade wire where the solder is going to stick there very well, but let me just go ahead and get these ready. Make sure you spin these really tight so that they don't come out. And just kind of twist the strands really tight. Any strands that you pull off, like I did just then, just make sure to get them off the table. All right, you don't want those getting in your motor. Okay, so we're going to tin these, and this time I'm going to tin them the way I normally would because that was a little more tedious, so I'm just going to do this for the sake of saving time and getting it done better. Let's see. So let me get my gun here. Here we go. Okay. And now, like we did before, we'll cut the excess wire off that we don't need. And we only need a very small amount. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this down to about 2 to 3 millimeters. All right, I'll go ahead and mount that motor next. That's going to be motor 3. Remember, clockwise motors or counterclockwise motors are going to go in slots 2 and 3. Let's go ahead and mount this real quick then. Julio, what time we flying tomorrow, bro? You coming up, right? So I know you wrote me about what time. Let me know. I'm game. Gonna take that new chaos out, see what happens. If you're comfortable doing the heat shrinking this way, you can do it also. I'm going to do it this way. Just because I put the motor on, so I'm going to go ahead and just do the heat shrink while I'm on here. Okay, still follow the same rules though. Press it down, make sure the wire stays straight, and go ahead and put it on there. But instead of flipping the motor over when you're done with the top side of this, you're just going to basically lift the wires up. So get that kind of nice and heated there. Well, then you're just going to basically lift it up, keep them in line to where they're straight, and then just heat it up. You'll be fine. And then when you lay it down, just press on it, and those are going to stay nicely in line. There you go. Now go ahead and put your zip tie on. 11:30, you got it, bud. We will fly at 11:30. Okay, so there's our motor number 3, which is our second motor to put on the quad. I'm going to go ahead now and solder that motor down. Okay. Make sure, guys, clean off the tip of your soldering iron. Make sure it doesn't have too much solder on there because you're getting close to the components here. Now I'm going to go ahead and just dab a little bit of solder because this is the manufacturer's solder. I want to put mine on there. I've got a better melting point, so just a little bit, just enough to get it to start there. There you go. All right, and again we're going to go from outside in, so we're going to start with wire C, which is your farthest wire, and keep it in that order. Get your tweezers here. And again, don't press down. If you do it right, it'll just melt right into place. If you have to press down, you may end up spreading those strands apart. I've done it. I do it often sometimes when I'm just in a hurry. And then you've got to go back and retin the wire properly. There's no cutting corners on this. Because if you do cut corners, you may experience some serious problems if the wire strands come loose and touch the other catch the other wires when you're flying, your quad's going to come down. Now I am going to put just a little bit more on here so that we get a better melting. All right, here we go with the next one. And it's like, you know, a short second to do this. It doesn't take very long, but I've got to get the right angle here while I still keep it on camera. It's much harder when you're trying to show everybody else how to do it. I'll have to turn this a little bit. There we go. All right, those look good. Let me show you what these look like. Okay, so here is what we just did, which are these wires here. And hopefully you can see that. Let me get the light up there maybe a little bit. Yeah, so those came out real nice. They're all set right. So now you've got the two counterclockwise motors mounted. And like I said, we'll go ahead and zip tie these wires down once we're done. All right, because we got to put the standoffs in. So now we're going to get set with the next set of motors. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just do both of them at the same time so that we don't have to keep doing this. So let me go ahead and grab, did I drop my tweezer? Oh, here they are. Okay. Let's just get these ready. And you know these are clockwise because when you tighten them, they tighten counterclockwise, right? So now when you have this piece here and you loosen it, you're actually turning it clockwise to loosen, okay? So to tighten it, you turn it counterclockwise, which if the motor's spinning clockwise like this is doing now, that's gonna tighten. That's how you know you're in a clockwise motor, all right? So just make sure you keep it in that same. Now sometimes they'll usually have different colored tops, but in this case they did all four green, so just better to keep note of it for yourself. George, thanks. Am I on the man cave big screen, George? God, getting these darn things out of these bags is a pain. There. All right, let me throw the bag out. Let's go ahead and mount this one on real quick, and then we'll do the next one. Okay, there's one. I'll just open this like a regular Ziploc bag, and that way I don't have to fight with it. Okay. All right, once this is done, go ahead and cut these, tin them, put the heat shrink on, and then get these mounted, and then we're off to the flight controller. All right, so again, cut them where the this bullet ends. So here goes, 1, 2, and 3. Throw that out. Go to the next one. 1, 2, and 3. I got splinters all over the place from some carbon fiber work I did. Oof. All right, go ahead and strip them at the where the heat shrink ends for them. Just close it. There's 1. 2. 3, and then make sure to twist the strands real tight so they don't come loose while you're tinning it. All right, that's one motor ready to go, and we'll do the other one real quick, tin them both, and then we'll get them both soldered in. Okay, there's one. And 3. Alright, now clean the dang toe off so that you don't get any of the wires that fell out. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to tin again. Let me get that ready. There's a second motor now. Okay, those are done. Now we'll clean it up. Where is my little, there he is. Again, remember we're just going to cut like to leave about 2 or 3 millimeters. 2 millimeters in this case is good. Let's just go ahead and cut it. So you don't have to worry about how the ends of the wire look when you do this because they're going to be trimmed off anyway. So if you have like a little blob of wire there or solder there, don't worry about it. When it comes off, they're all going to look the same, right? So there's the end result, and it looks, all those are tinned and ready to go. So let's do the next one. Again, these are all pretty much identical, tinned and ready to go. Clean the table off. Make sure you don't have any excess solder or wires on there. It's a good habit to get into, so just do it. Just to do it. All right, now, before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and put the heat shrink on this time. Yours is already pre-cut at 40. I haven't cut mine, so I'm just gonna go ahead and measure mine real quick. So there's one. There's the other one. All right, get your heat shrink on there. Okay. We'll go ahead and get this motor done real quick. And again, make sure you've pressed down to make sure the wires are all in a row and straight. All right. Okay, that one's done. We'll do the last one. Okay, now we can mount our last motors. All right, we're gonna zip tie 'em next. Remember, we're zip tying to the inside, so if you want to make them look identical and symmetrical, that's what you're gonna do here. And I think I need to go get one more zip tie, so hang tight 1 second. There we go. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and solder the wires on. So we'll go ahead and start with motor number 1 right here. Pulling off the soldering tip. Again, I'm just going to put just a dab on there on top of the manufacturer's solder just so that it takes a little bit quicker. All right. Same thing, we're going to go from the outside in again, so this way you're not crossing over any of the wires that you've already soldered. So just get it kind of situated. I know you guys can't see this side of it, but I'll show you when I'm done. Get the other wires out of the way, and here we go. 1. 2. And 3. All right, so those are in. Clean those up and show you guys what they look like real quick. Okay, so there's our next set of wires right here. And those are done. And so now we're going to go ahead and finish our last set. This is motor 4. So we're going to go ahead and put those on real quick. Those are pretty much ready to go. So let me just put a little bit of solder down here. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. these are a lot easier to do because you're not around the capacitor on this side. So, and then this will be the last one. Okay, and there we go. So now that our motors are soldered, right? And that's what that looks like. That's the one I just did, all right? So now we've got all 4 motors soldered, and remember it's motors 1, 2, 3, and 4, counterclockwise, clockwise motors, and all the cables are identical in length. So when you lay them out, because everything's spaced evenly, they're gonna go pretty even onto the onto the system here. All right, so this part is done, and now we need to get to the wiring, the harness that basically came with the system. Okay, now I'm going to show you on here what I've done. Hopefully this is going to help you a little bit. All right, so you have 4 wires here plus a additional wire, right? And that additional wire is going to be your ground. So let me show you. I want to show you on the other quad, but it's not going to really help right now. Okay, so this is your wire harness that came with the quad, or with the ESC, right? And if you look at the back here, all right, they're going to be in a specific order. So let me just kind of try. I'm going to separate them a little bit so I can show you. All right, so they're going to fan out kind of like a deck of cards, right? So what you have is, in every 3rd slot there, if you're looking at them from this side where you can see the actual pin, these are your signal wires. This one is your ground wire. So if you can look, let me get a little pointer here, just because you need to make sure you understand this, okay? So you have, this is channel 1 because it goes in this order. Wherever ground is going to be the start of channel 1. So you've got channel 1, which is right here, channel 2, channel 3, and channel 4, which corresponds. 1 is 1, 2 is 2, 3 is 3, 4 is 4. On the flight controller, you'll see where it's going to plug in because it's labeled that way. This wire here, this set that has this extra first wire, that is your ground wire, and that will actually be attached to the ground of the flight controller, okay? That wire is used, in this case, you put ground around your signal wires so that you can stop some interference. This is actually going to ground these to the flight controller, so I'm going to show you what you do. First thing you're going to do is you're going to end up cutting those. So let me get this situated, and let me see how I wanted to do your LiPo here, because I did the LiPo a different way. So, okay. So what we're going to do is, and we're not going to tighten this down fully, but we are going to get the flight controller. So here's your flight controller box. Go ahead and open your flight controller. And I'm going to explain to you what we're going to do with this and explain to you exactly where everything is on this. So on your flight controller, the flight controller is going to be mounted in this direction. You're going to have your digital readout. Sorry, let me zoom out here. And let me try this as well. This may make it a little bit easier. Okay, so your flight controller is going to have your digital readout on the top. All right, and you have this arrow right here. This arrow is pointing the direction the flight controller should be pointed, so which would be straight in this case. We're going to end up turning the flight controller to the right, and it's going to mount. Now I'll put the spacers in, but I'm just kind of giving you an idea here of what we're looking for. And this is why we keep the screws loose, so that we can kind of adjust it. But this is what you're looking for, right? And in doing this, the arrow is pointing forward. This is the forward of your craft. And each signal pad now, and I'll show you where they are. This is signal pad 1. You can see it. You'll see it if you have the flight controller in front of you. But that basically, that signal pad says S1. Let's see if I can get that there. So yeah, so you can kind of see it here. That's S1. And then you're going to have S2, which is right here. Right there. And then you're going to have S3, which is right here. And then you're going to have S4, which is right there. Is that right? Am I looking at these right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, sorry. Without my magnifying, I can barely see it. All right. So anyway, so that's what we're going to do. And that means that these wires are going to get cut, because when these plug in, you are going to plug it into your ESC, and then they're just going to go to here. So we're going to shorten these down quite a bit. But the first thing we want to do is make sure we've got everything checked out right, and we do. So make sure you pre-tin this, or not pre-tin it, make sure you put your flux on here. So in this case, we are going to attach to the pads here. If you look right here, you're going to see the negative pad, or the ground pad, and the positive pad. So we are going to actually solder to those. So go ahead and make sure you put your flux on those. And then also put it on and around the XT60 right here, the holes where your XT60 is going to go. Okay, now I'm gonna do this somewhat different than most people. If you wanna put a wire to your XT60 so it's flexible, a lot of people like that. You go ahead and do that with the you're gonna have extra power and ground right here, but make sure that you put your flux on everything else. Here's your cameras, and in your channels, and even if you're not gonna use the ports, just put it on there. I'm kind of putting a lot more just because I'm talking about it, but here's what we're gonna do next. So set that aside. Here's your board. You need to go ahead and get your solder on your board. So let me go ahead and get this centered where you can see. All right, now you're gonna pre-tin your board. This board doesn't have any solder on it, so you plan on pre-tinning it, and please give the board a breather. If you're very heavy on the soldering iron, just dab it, just quick, just like that, okay? There's one, that's pre-tinned, and that covers the entire piece of, golly, I wish I could show you that better. Let me see if I can show you that better. Let me see if I can go this route. Here. Let's see if that works better. Okay, so I don't know if that's gonna be better or not, but when you solder something on these boards, and right now I just soldered that one, and it's very hard to see, but see if I can get this up here. It's very hard to do these stupid cameras here. Let's try this. So if you can see that blob, where did I put it? Oops, it is right. Signal 4, where the heck did I go? Signal 4 is right there. Okay, so right there, you can see it, I guess. You see that little small piece? I mean, that's all you need is that right there, right? And then that took all of half a second to put on there. So just put a little bit and then let it go. Don't sit there forever because you're gonna overheat the board, and it's gonna start making things get kind of screwed up on your board if you're not careful. So let me just get back to finishing this, and I'll show you exactly what it'll all look like. I'm gonna go through this real quick. For those of you that don't know what paths to solder, just do them all. I mean, what difference does it make? If you're gonna practice soldering anyway, you might as well do them all. Just knock it out. That's pretty much all of it for me. So now here's where it's gonna get tricky, right? So now my board's not hot at all because I mean I'm touching all the spaces I soldered on it, and this is what it should look like when it's done. All right. I mean, you can look at all the solder points there. All the solder's put on evenly. It's exactly what I need to be, and it didn't get the board hot. But now I'm gonna do this area right here. All right. This is where people tend to overheat their boards. So here goes. When you do this, please, by all means, give the board a break if you're heavy on the solder iron. If you don't, you will start seeing things loosen off this board, okay? So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead, because I know I'm gonna be putting a positive to here to bring up the power from the ESC. So I'm gonna go ahead and solder right here real quick. And what you're gonna do is just put just like this and just spread it out, that's all. And just kind of real quickly, just cover the area. Look at that, you're done. Now let it cool down. I always keep my finger on the board. If the board gets so hot that I can't put my finger on it, it's time to let the board cool down. That was pretty quick and to the point, so that didn't happen. Let me get this out of here. All right. Let's do the other side. Now the ground is always different. It's always gonna function a little different for a reason I don't know, but it always gets a little bit more sticky. It just adheres different to the board when I do it. But still, you're just gonna go quickly. Actually, this one went very smooth, and there you go, you're done. Still, my finger's on the board, it's not too hot, so everything looks good. Now, the next piece that you're gonna do is in your kit, right, in your F3V4 board, you're gonna have your XT60 connector. This is where you need to decide how you wanna do it. I will solder straight to the board, all right? A lot of people like to have the cable because if they have a break or if there's a hard crash, I guess you can see this snap off. It's happened. I don't do it that way because I like my XT60 to be solid, and I haven't had one snap off, but that doesn't mean it won't. But if you're going to do it the way I'm doing it, then you need to make sure you have flux on both sides, all right? And you need to, for best practice, if you care about making it even, you need to find a surface that's going to let you prop this board up so that it can sit like this. Because if you try to do it like this, you're going to end up soldering the XT60. Even though it'll work, it'll just have this little angle to it, and you don't want that. So kind of find a surface where you can set the board. I'm going to use the handle of my snips at this point. And I'm going to just get going with this, but be careful, please, that you do not overheat the board again. I give you the same warning when you do this, okay? So just tap one side to it, hold it down with your finger, because like I said, if it gets hot, then you'll know that your board is overheating. So let me get this kind of situated. There we go. And I'm just going to basically start around the edge, because once I put that edge soldered, it's going to hold kind of a grip to it. And then I'm going to carry it around. Now, at this point, if you're moving and you're taking the solder off, then you're okay. If you're not, then you're going to heat the board up. Now, my finger's still on the board. It's kind of on the board here, so I'm always putting something there to feel it. And so far, everything's pretty good. So I'm not holding it down too much to cause it to overheat, but this is going to be it. After I get this one done, I'm going to let it cool now. All right, just because. But there you go. That's one piece already done. And now we're just going to do the other side as soon as it cools here. And then we'll be done with the board as far as that goes, and we'll go ahead and install it and solder the wires. Okay. Now, while you're waiting for that to cool down, go ahead and grab your quad. Get your wire situated. This is the wire harness that we're using. And if you'll notice on this side, you've got pins here, right here. Here, let me turn this over. You've got your pins here where the harness is going to plug into. Let me see how those are set. Those are actually with the pins up. So look at your harness plug and make sure that the holes are aimed up. And when you do that, you just pop this right in and you're done. Okay. Now, if you look at your board, see if I can show you this real quick. If you look at your board, let me get my pointer here. Right here, there's some letters right on this board, okay? And they are going to say 4, 3, 2, 1, and G for ground. That's what I was telling you about what each of these wires stands for, okay? So you've got 4, 3, 2, 1, and G. And you're going to pull them like that. So if you can see that, if you got eyes better than mine, S4, S3, S2, S1, and G. So from left to right, depending on how you're looking at this camera, I guess, remember that the cable that has 2 wires in it, let me turn this around. Remember that the plug that has 2 wires, this is channel 1, and this is your ground. So 1 and ground, and then the next one next to it is 2, the next one after that is 3 and 4. So you can estimate how far you want to peel this back. I would say, I would probably give it about that much. So if I had a ruler here, I would say that you're going to probably cut at the, you can cut it at least 60 millimeters. And just know that you may be cutting more, but if you cut it at 60 millimeters, you can go ahead and peel these down. So separate them. Just remember that they go in that specific order. So pull up 60 millimeters or whatever you're comfortable with. I'm going to do 60 to start and then probably shorten them as I go. Give me about 60 millimeters here. Which is right there. And I'm going to cut these off because I don't need all this excess wire. This is more than we definitely more than we need. All right, so put that aside. Save these wires. Again, just like the other wires, these are going to be good to use. So you've got your ground and your I guess I didn't split these ones enough. Hold on. When I separated them, I didn't pull the channel 1 and the ground apart. So let me just do that real quick. All right, so there we go. Okay, so now from right to left, if you're looking at this from right to left, the first wire is your ground, and you can match it to the words that are on the bottom there. All right, now our flight controller is cooled down. Just go ahead and put that aside, bring your flight controller back, and now we're just going to finish the soldering of the bottom part of the XT60. Then I'm going to put the edges on, and do not hold the solder down for too long. Make sure to let it cool and try to get your finger on the board so that if it does start heating up too much, you know to let off. All right, and we will get this fastened here in no time. And there we go. It's done. So our XT60, and the board's not hot. I mean, I can hold it in my hand, so I know I didn't overheat it. You guys need to make sure you can do that. So there you go. Your XT60 is now even. It's not slanted at any angle. All right, it's covered all the way, and the solder is on all sides of it. It's set. So this is not going anywhere. All right. These solders are going to be for the wires that come from the ESC. And so now we are ready to go ahead and mount our flight controller. And here's where you're going to use your spacers next. So now you've got your 12mm spacers that are in your kit, and you've also got these 0.5mm metal spacers, right? So let me zoom out because I know you can't see that. So you've got all of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the 12mm spacer in. So go ahead and prop all 4 of those on. I don't know where my 4th one is. Oh, here it is. Okay. And on top of that, put your 0.5mm. Now I know the screws aren't tightened yet, and I don't want them tightened still. Just go ahead and get this part done. Okay. Now go ahead, put your flight controller on, and remember it's with the arrow pointing forward to the front of the quad. So it's going to go on just like that. And since the screws are loose, you can at least move them so that they fit inside so you can mount this. There you go. There is your quad, okay? And if you look on the bottom, you have clearance by about, I don't know, maybe a 0.5mm, maybe a little more than that from that capacitor. And that's why we added that metal 0.5mm piece. Now, this is done. For right now, go ahead and take one of your nylon fasteners and just tighten it down to hold the board in place because it's going to kind of want to bounce off there, right? There. Now you can look at what you're working with, okay? What we have next is we have these wires here that are your signal wires and your ground. So you want to plan ahead of time how you're going to do this. You also have your 2 XT60 or your 2 LiPo connectors that are in your ESC. And what we're going to do is we're going to feed those, and I'll show you how I was going to do this. We're going to feed those underneath and come out right here. And I'll show you better. Let me just do this on the table and then I'll show you how it's going to look. All right. So we're going to feed them underneath and turn it around. And from here you can gauge. Take this sticker off, by the way. There you go. Okay, from there you can gauge. This is exactly what we're doing next. So if you want to see what it looks like on the other side, feed them around this 12mm standoff and then just pull them out and get them set because this is what you're going to be cutting and soldering next. Okay? And so in this case, keep your measurement, and the way I like to do it is I'll take a wire and I'll give it some, some room here because I don't want it too tight, and I'll cut exactly where it ends where I'm soldering. In this case, this metal pad right here, this pad right here is where I'm soldering this ground wire to. So the end of that pad is right here, so I'm going to mark this wire to cut, and I'll show you exactly what it should look like. Okay, so now when I reach this wire over, I can get it to the end of that pad. That means I can strip this wire back that much, and I can have that much of that wire attached. And because this is your power wire, it is important to have a good amount available. Same thing with the positive. It's going to come in at a little bit more of an angle. So again, because it's coming in at an angle, I'll just pull to the top corner, and that's how much I'm going to cut. And I'll show you what that looks like. Now, save these, please. These are good power cables. And so that's what that looks like right there. Now that you've done that, you can go ahead, take your flight controller off, and just work with these wires for the time being to get them stripped and pre-tinned and ready to go. In this case, I would take, see, how would I measure it? Like, here's the cable that came with your quad, this one we just cut. Try to strip about that much back, okay? And I'm gonna say that that's probably about 4mm. So try to strip about 4 to 5mm of that back. And so something kind of like this here. And then the same on your ground cable. Don't forget you have to tin these, so, but because they're mounted on here, I can just do it straight from here. So make sure to tin both cables real quick. Maybe good practice. If you open your, well, you can use that sticker. Where is that sticker thing here? You can use the HDLRC sticker paper, whatever. You just want to, oh, mine's taped to the board. Hold on. Okay. You just lay this paper right across here. Kind of protect and shield it, shield the board. And then just go ahead and tin your wires. I know that's blocking the camera a little bit, but I need to make sure these are safe. So let me go ahead and tin these real quick. Okay, let's do the next one. And I'll show you what it looks like here in a second. Okay, wires are tinned somewhat. Okay, now we can go ahead and we can put our flight controller back on. Okay, and there it is. Go ahead and fasten it down. I think I'm just going to use a standoff again, just because I keep losing those stupid little nylon things. Okay, and here we go. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that, my friend. Try what I can, you know. All right, so feed your wire through, guys. We'll start with the positive wire. Feed it through. Make sure it goes in smooth. All right, now look. This is where it's going to come down to what you think you're comfortable with. I know that I like to have quite a bit of solder holding these in place. So I'm just going to put another quick layer real quick on here. Nothing too big, just enough to where it just kind of melts in place, just like that, all right? And this is where people tend to overheat their boards, so be very careful. Get your cable in place on how you want it. You got to get a good grip on it, all right? And then just kind of press it down and try to like bring the solder up just to get a grip. You just want to get it started, right? And hopefully that, okay, there's my grip right now. It's going to pop off here as soon as I do what I'm about to do next. But just follow me on this. And now you don't have to do it this way. If you have your own method, that's fine. But what I like to do is I like to just get some solder now into the edges. Now the cable may pop up, but I'm all right with that. Okay. And now I'm going to, when I put it back down again, I'm going to be able to get a better coverage area here of it. And this is just me. This is what I do. Everybody kind of does theirs different. And I will usually turn my tweezers around if I can get a grip. I've just got to get this to stay in place here. My tweezers are kind of, these ones are weak. That's why I'm having such a hard time. The good ones I have, but they are actually on another system right now. So let me just go ahead and get this covered. And then once I do that, it's going to all melt in together. I'm going to have a pretty nice little connection there. Okay, and there's my solder for that one. And it came out really well. And what I did was I kind of pass it over one to the other. And then when I do that, it melts the wire. I mean, it melts the solder on the wire perfectly into it, and it kind of forms a pretty nice bond there. So I'm going to do the same with the ground. So let me just put another little layer right here. All right. And we're going to do the same thing. You got to feed it through. Put my soldering iron down. Well, yeah, you know, I think that this industry, Josh, I really do think that more people need to understand how to build. Unfortunately, the drawbacks are going to be, one, the investment to do it and afford to screw it up. That's pretty much the biggest problem, biggest hurdle. Hey, Omar, how you doing? And, you know, for me, that was what got me into this, was I enjoyed the troubleshooting, and I invested a lot to get there. But, you know, it sucks because even for me, when I sell parts to people, a lot of people, they don't know how to solder, or it's their first time, and it's hard to warranty or do anything like that. So it's really a kind of a toss-up. But in my opinion, you should know how to build and repair your quad, so that mainly so you don't get ripped off by anybody. I mean, you know, not everybody's as honest as I am. So And it's the truth. I mean, I've seen so many guys come through here that are like, yeah, this guy said this flight controller is bad, and I'm looking at him going, man, your flight controller's flying. You have maybe a 5 volt that's bad, but there's so many different pads that offer it. You don't have to buy a new flight controller, just tap into something else. But, I don't know, it's like any other business, I guess. There's can't trust everyone. But you can trust the tattooed guy. Trust me, don't let the tattoos fool you. I'm honest. I don't know. I say that our generation is okay with it. I think it's the older crowd that freaks out. All right, so the ground is done. I want to turn this around and see real quick. Okay, ground looks good. Just going to get the inside of that real quick, and there we go. So we've got 2 very good solid connections here. We've got our positive and our ground. We're done. We're tapped into the ESC. That is very solid. Oh, thanks, Jim. I appreciate you. I appreciate you very much. All right, so here we are now, and now we're going to our signal wires and our ground. And please remember, from right to left, okay? I know we read from left to right, but we're going to do this right to left. The first wire on the right is your ground wire. That wire is going to actually tap into your ground here that we just soldered, but that's why there's a little space left there. So what you want to do is to measure this, figure out the path you're going to take with your wire. I don't care which one you take, but just figure out one that looks comfortable to you, and that's how much you're going to cut, okay? So I'm going to lay my wire this way, and so I'm going to cut just a little bit off of this because it's a little too much. But if I didn't want to cut any at this point, I'd probably be okay because having a little bit of extra wire gives you some room to play with here. But let me show you what we're going to do. You're going to take it, you're going to twist it, just like we've been doing. You're going to tin it very quickly. Okay, right here. That's it. Now, bring it down and just have it blend into this same soldering area right here. Just like that. That's it. You're done. And I will always pull over the wire. Like if you saw me, I was soldering, I lifted up and went over the ground. I like layering the solder like that, but you're done. So your ground is now done. Now you have channel 1, okay? And remember, motor 1, if the quad is facing forward, motor 1 is your bottom right motor. Channel 1, which is S1, is right here, all right? So you will measure again. Now, keep in mind, S1 and S3 are almost equal distances apart. S2 and S4 are almost equal distance apart. So whatever you cut 1, cut 3. Whatever you cut for 2, you can cut for 4. You don't have to do a whole bunch of measuring. Just try to ballpark it so that you get something neat. So again, these are really close. I'm not really sure there's going to be much to cut, but I'm going to trim it back. Julio, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Julio tried to kill us one day, by the way. I'll let Julio tell that story one day when we do a live build with him. But I will just tell you that I've never seen somebody hit full throttle in a garage and almost kill everybody in there. But Julio did it. Sorry, Julio, I'm calling you out, throwing you under the bus. We had some good laughs afterward. The funniest part of the whole thing was Julio sat in the chair and didn't move while this quad was slamming into the wall, slamming into the ceiling. I'm running, like I took off and then I stopped because I found myself staring at it to see what it was going to hit next. Julio sat there and it went around him the entire time. He never flinched. All right, anyways, so trim that there. The signal pads are very small. Let me try to show you how small they are. It's that silver one right there, if you can see that, and it's going to be hard to see. Okay, I think that's fair. I think I can show you this way. So look, where the heck is where are my tweezers at? I'll grab these ones real quick. So, shit. All right, there's my drink. If you look at this signal pad right here, this is S1, signal pad 1. It's that little dot right there, okay? So when you do to solder these, you cannot have 2 or 3 millimeters of stuff. You're going to have much less wire exposed, okay? So let me show you how you're going to do this. This is my signal wire here, and I'll zoom in a second just to show you, but cut 1 millimeter, 1.5 millimeters maybe. But this is all you want to solder to, and I don't know if I can show you that. God darn it, these. I need to have a better backdrop here for this, so let me just try it like that and see if you can see that. And we'll zoom in. There. I think you can see that all right. That is all you want. okay? Because if you do any more than that, you may run off and hit another component because they're very tight fit. So let's work with that and try your best to make that work so that you don't have any wires sticking outside or extending. And here's how you're going to do it. So this is going to signal 1 because it's the second wire from the right. The first wire was ground. Let's go ahead, grab our soldering iron. And if you can count more than 1 second, you've stayed on this thing too long, all right? So let me clean off the tip of this. You get 1 second max to solder this thing. If you take more than 1 second, you really need to stop and make sure that you're doing it right and make sure your board isn't too heated up now. Oh, wow, shit, I'm so zoomed in, my bad. All right, so let me go right here. Okay. And it's just a touch, okay? So when you get to it, get your wire on it, and sorry, I gotta get my solder gun ready. Get your wire on it, that's it, you're done. It's that simple. Do not, I mean, it's not even a second, it's like a millisecond, I guess. But here's what it should look like when you're done. Yeah, okay, so you can see it right there under the number 8. That's all you're doing. Nothing more, no extra solder, no nothing. Okay, no, nothing. I know English may not be proper there, but there you go. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and do signal number 2. And that's gonna be up here. This is signal 2 right here, towards the front. Again, you're just gonna cut some off. So we're gonna cut this off here. Strip just a little bit of it. Twist it real good so you get a good fix on this thing. There you go. Pre-tin it real quickly. Again, it's about a 1 second count for pre-tinning. These wires on the ESC are very good. The wires that came on the motors just don't adhere to the solder that well at the beginning, so you just have to take your time. Cut off the excess that you don't need. There you go. And bring this to the signal pad. And signal 2 is right here. Let me get this standoff out of the way so you can see. Okay, and again, you are talking about, make sure you get your tweezers on there. You're talking about less than a second of once you touch it. There you go, you're done. That's it. Okay, it automatically binds it really well. So we'll finish the other 2 out now real quick, and then all 4 signal pads will be done. So this is signal pad number 3, which is coming back to the back here. And because this is gonna route a little different, I'm not even sure there's much to cut on this one at all. But let me see. I'm not gonna cut any on the signal pad 3 because I like to kind of have that one to be able to maneuver a little bit. It's kind of way in the back here, and the buzzer's back here. And so you may end up moving it around because the buzzer's in the way. So let's just leave that at full length. Tin it real quickly. Cut your excess off. And get that down there. And then we'll do signal 4. Signal 4 is like signal 2, it's right up here up front. So again, just cut your excess off. Sorry, bear with me a second. I am trying to plug in my phone at the same time. That stupid thing while I hold the solder iron, or while I hold this tweezers here. There we go. Okay. So we're gonna cut this. Tin it real quick and then put that down, and you're